chef, urban farmer, aspiring researcher, and educator here in Brooklyn. I live in Bed-Stuy, and today I'm super excited to be joining y'all at the virtual Harvest Fair with Greenthumb 2020 to show y'all how to make a really yummy pizza from scratch. Because it's cooling down, the leaves are falling, there's lots of yummy, fresh produce at the markets, that are more seasonal, more autumnal, more fall-like. So today I'm going to be making pizza with y'all using some fresh veggies from the farm I work at right now, which is KCC Urban Farm. And so we're going to make a pizza from scratch. Although you can also, since it's pizza, you could probably get your own buy pizza dough from supermarket. You can also get your own sauce. But today I'm going to show you how you can do it with some really basic ingredients and some fresh veggies and such to get it customized. You can also season it however you like. So we're going to make pizza dough from scratch, tomato sauce, and then we're going to saute up some kale, some onions, some late season peppers, and then get it on a pizza dough and get it in the oven and have something that you can enjoy with your family or your friends. So we're gonna get started. Right, so the first thing you're gonna do is get a cup of warm water into the bowl. And you want it to be warm, not too hot, otherwise it could kill the yeast from being active. And then we're going to get in half a tablespoon of yeast and then just 1 teaspoon of sugar. And you're just going to mix all that together. And the sugar is going to feed the yeast, get them activated, all in there, alive and happy. Because I usually keep my yeast in the fridge. So it's good to have like a warm kitchen, warm water, give them some sugar, and just like stir it together. And once it's all mixed together, you can just let it bloom a little bit so that the yeast is like bubbling somewhat. And once that happens, you can just add in the flour. So you're just gonna add in half a cup of the flour. So you have a total of 3 cups, but you're just adding in half a cup. And then you're gonna add in about 2 tablespoons of olive oil. I couldn't find my tablespoon measure, so I had to use my half tablespoon. So that's why I'm measuring in 4 to make it just 2 tablespoons in total here. And then you're just gonna mix all of that together really well to get it incorporated and start getting the flour in there. And once that is mixed together, you can start to measure out the remaining amount of flour, which is going to be 2.5 cups. And then you're also adding half a teaspoon of salt. You're just going to whisk that together, make sure it's really well incorporated, and then you can start mixing that in with the yeasty mixture. You can do it in increments if you want, but I tend to just mix it all together at once. And then using my hands, just get everything incorporated and then slowly start kneading it. So here I'm starting to kind of get past the point of mixing it, and I'm kind of working the dough at this point. Not officially kneading it, but kind of getting close to that. And once I get every bit of the flour incorporated, I'm just gonna take that out of my bowl, sprinkle some flour on my surface, and then you're gonna knead it for about 3 to 5 minutes, just to get that gluten developing in the dough, get it smooth and soft and like supple. And then once I'm done kneading it, I'm just going to let it rest in the bowl with some oil. And you'll really want to toss the oil in there, but we'll get to that point. But here I'm just kneading it really, really well. Once you've kneaded the dough for about 3 to 5 minutes, then what I'm doing here is drizzling the oil, some olive oil into my bowl and just kind of getting it all over the dough on the sides of the bowl just to make sure nothing's going to be sticking or causing the dough to deflate when we take it out more so than we want it to. And just going to cover it up and let it rise for about 30 minutes or to an hour. Just want to see it double in size. And about an hour, 30 minutes or so later, come back and we've got some risen dough. Ta-da! So once the dough's risen, what I'm gonna do is you can either make a really big pizza if you're doing like a sheet pizza or what they call like a grandma pizza in some places, or you can break the dough up into 2 pizza doughs that'll make about a 10 to 12 inch pizza each. And you can break those up either way, whether you're making 2 pieces or 1. What I like to do is I like to shape the dough into a nice round so I can set it aside and work on my other pizza components. This is also a great way if you want to make pizza dough in advance. You can make the dough and then you can shape it with the floured surface and then put it in a reusable baggie and just pop it in your freezer. And then whenever you're ready to make pizza dough or have pizza, you can just go in your freezer, put it in the fridge in the morning, and then later that night you can have pizza that you can make. Or if you're like me and you just want to have 2 pizzas to eat in one afternoon, you can make the 2 doughs and get them shaped up and just set them aside so you can start working on your sauce. So that's what's next. So this is a semi from scratch pizza sauce. So that means we're using some canned sauce, or if you can some of your summer tomatoes, you can use that here too. What we'll be doing is seasoning the sauce, the plain canned sauce, with oregano, garlic, onions, and some basil from the farm. What I'm doing here first is I'm just cutting up this onion, dicing it up to go in the pan. I'm just gonna use half an onion, and what I did is cut it in half. And now I'm just making some horizontal cuts. Then I'm gonna make some vertical cuts and then a couple of more horizontal cuts in the other direction to get some dice in there. Once the onions are all diced up, I'm just gonna put those to the side before we get them in the pan. And I'm gonna get some of these basil flowers. So we've got some basil flowers. It's the end of the season. Our basil is like producing lots of little flowers. You can either use this or you can just use basil leaves, whatever you have. I think it's kind of fun to use the flowers in different parts of the plant. And so I'm just gonna chop those up really tiny, and then it's gonna go in the pan with the onions. Once we've got our onions and our basil in the pan, we're gonna get some oregano in there as well, along with some garlic powder. You can also use whole garlic and just mince that up. But I like, for the sauce, I just want to have the powdered version, just like a little bit more finer and a little more delicate. So you put that in there and then just get it sauteed up and get them a little bit slightly caramelized and broken down. Once the onions are a little bit translucent and tender, that's when I'm going to add in some of the tomato paste. So about a tablespoon of tomato paste in there, and just get that. That's going to add some sweetness and some depth to the sauce. And I like adding sweetness to my tomato sauces without using like sugar, because I did grow up putting sugar in like tomato sauces, spaghetti sauces, which I don't do anymore as an adult. It's a little bit weird. I don't know why we did that, but I do still like having that sweetness, but more from like a natural sweetness that comes in the fruits and vegetables already. And tomato paste, I think, does a really great job of that, especially for a pizza sauce or spaghetti sauces, as well as like soups and things. So you just want to cook it so it gets browned a little bit. And yeah. So it's the end of the season. It's, getting close to, not totally the end of the season, but it is September. And by the time this video comes out, it'll be late September. So a lot of things, whether it's in community gardens or farms, are kind of winding down, producing lots of flowers. But in today's sauce, I used some of the flowers from the basil from the farm, from KCC. So even though the leaves aren't super pretty, they're kind of, getting a little like not as green, getting a little yellow. They're still really good, and the flowers are really floral and bright, and kind of give a more concentrated, peppery taste to the sauce, which is why we're chopping them up to add to the sauce and add some depth, complexity to today's sauce. So yeah, but I really encourage you to like use your herbs and spices, even if they're getting kind of end of the season, and experiment and play around with the flavors that they have at a different stage, instead of like them being really like tender and new or milds that they like are perhaps in the spring, early summer. Now they're kind of getting a little bit more mature flavors and elements. But yeah, encourage you to try it if you have access to like fresh basil flowers and fresh basil plants. All right, back to business. So next, what you're going to be adding in is the canned tomato sauce, which it should be plain. Shouldn't have any salt really in there. I try to find the canned tomatoes that has like the least amount of salt. That way, what I'm making for my pizza sauce isn't going to be, I don't have to worry about it being too salty or not having flavors that I don't want in there. And so you can bring it to a little boil and then turn down the temperature to just let it simmer there a bit and really get marinated with all the flavors of the onions and the herbs. And you can just put that aside, and then you can also get your basil leaves in there and let those simmer down a little bit to add some more brightness and like mintiness to the flavor, because basil has like a slight minty undertones. But anyways, we're gonna get those in there and let it simmer for a little while we work on our other toppings. So we're keeping it simple with this pizza topping, and I'm using some of the farm's scarlet red kale as well as some of the farm's chocolate peppers. These chocolate peppers haven't changed colors yet though, but that's okay. And we're gonna have some onions, but keeping it really simple by slicing the onions into just some strips. And we're gonna do the same thing with the peppers. So once the onions are cut into strips, I'm gonna set those aside so we can saute them with the peppers before they go on the pizza. And so with the pepper, we're just gonna take out the seeds, get that center core out of there, and then we're just gonna cut those into strips, matching the size of the onions pretty roughly, and just get those into the bowl as well. And since these are going on pizza, we don't have to cook it a lot. I'm just cooking it enough so that they get a little bit caramelized, get some of those juices going, and they're not just like dry and kind of like boring looking. It also gives you a chance to season them a bit too. So what I'm gonna do for these is just add a little bit of salt and pepper and just keep it simple. And then once they start to get just starting to get a bit translucent, that's when, and some like browning on it, that's when I'm gonna take them off the pan and set it aside. And then for the kale, what I'm gonna do is I'm just stripping the leaves off. And if you want to, you can go the extra mile and cut up the stems and add those to your pizza as well and saute those a little bit. But today I'm just putting the stems in the food scraps pile for the compost, and I'm gonna get these leaves chopped up, sliced in half into medium-sized pieces to get sauteed as well. Once the pan is free of the onions and peppers, I'm gonna add a little bit more oil in there, and then just get the kale pieces inside, and it'll start to shrink down pretty quickly. But sometimes I get a little bit impatient with the greens when I'm making them for pizza, and to help them shrink down a little bit faster, I'll add just a splash of water, which creates some more steam, and that steam helps to shrink it down a lot faster so that I can get more greens in the pan. And for the greens, those are gonna get some seasoning too, like layering flavors. We're layering on the onions and peppers and the sauce, and just being mindful as you're making these different components, like how much salt you're using, so it's not overbearing. And so I'm adding some garlic powder and some paprika to my greens, and just getting those cooked up a little bit. And again, you don't have to cook it to oblivion because it's gonna go in the oven, and it's gonna be under cheese and all that stuff if you're using cheese or vegan cheese, so it'll definitely cook more. So I'm just trying to kind of reduce the size of it and get some flavor infused in there before it goes on to the pizza. But you don't have to cook it a whole bunch. Then once you're done cooking up your toppings all ready to go, it's time to get the assembly line ready. So we're gonna prep our pan by sprinkling on some coarse cornmeal. That's what I typically use. And you can also use semolina. And then just going to preheat the oven to 450 and get that ready to go. So here I'm just going to use my hands. I'm not going to use a rolling pin for this because they're so small and the dough is really easy to work with. So I can just press it out onto the pan. And it's not going to stick on the bottom. It should lift right off later on. And once I get it to the size that I want, that's when I'm going to start getting on the sauce. So I'll use my spoon to ladle the sauce out, and then I'm going to start adding on my onions, as well as the peppers and the kale, and then the cheese, which is my favorite part. You don't have to be as excessive with the cheese. This is your pizza. You can put whatever you want. Also, other topping ideas, you can roast sweet potatoes. Those are really good on pizza. You can roast like beets or radish. Try those out. As well as like other vegetable options or different herbs too. Really fun combinations, as well as like different cheeses like goat cheese or mozzarella. Today I'm using like this mix of cheeses, shredded cheeses like Gruyere, and Parmesan, which is really yummy. And really, you can put whatever you want on your pizza, whatever floats your boat, whatever vegetables you typically like to eat or want to try out in a different way that isn't just like as a side dish. Roast them, toast them, saute them, pop it on your pizza, and add your favorite cheese if you like. And then you're gonna get it right in the oven. Lastly, you're gonna just drizzle, just a light drizzle of olive oil. I know I've used a lot of oil in this demo. This is totally optional, but I grew up definitely like my mom putting drizzling our pizzas with olive oil. So just kind of a habit, and I like the flavor and the crunch that it adds to the crust. And then once you're done, your pizza's where you want it to be. Just pop it in the oven for 10 to 15 minutes. It's on 450, so it's really not going to take that long. After about 10, 15 minutes, 20, if it's a little bit colder season, your pizza's going to be ready. And so it's time to chop into it and get a taste of that good, delicious, cheesy, bready, veggie goodness. And now the moment of truth. We have our pizza. Uh-huh. It's really good though. It's really good though. Cheesy. Got the peppers in there. A little kick from the chili flakes. So yeah, highly recommend. Give it a try. Make your own pizza dough. Make your own sauce. Add your own spices and herbs to it. And like I said earlier, you can also roast sweet potatoes. Like slice up some sweet potatoes and roast those and put them on to your pizza if you want. Same thing with like different like butternut squash slices are really good. Play around with some of the things that are coming out of the farmer's market, or even if you see at the supermarket that are a little more in season. Give those kind of like cozy, warm fall vibes. And yeah, enjoy the remaining harvest of local food right now. Yeah, thanks for joining me in making pizza, and I hope you all enjoy the rest of your day. Bye.